how to teach vocabulary and to do this in our classrooms in ways that will engage our students. But first, I need 3 volunteers. All right, so each of our volunteers has 2 note cards. I want you to read just a sentence that's on your first note card. Go ahead.
The ice cream selection in the rock was providential.
Thank you.
My textbook is monochromatic.
Okay.
When it rains, I feel melancholy.
All right. Now, if we had our students, let's say our 4th and 5th graders, read those sentences, do you think they would get those 3 big words that were in those sentences? No, they wouldn't. But go ahead and flip your note card and read the second sentence. We'll start off with this sentence about the ice cream.
The ice cream selection in the rock was a happy one.
Okay.
My textbook is boring. When it rains, I feel sad.
Okay. Now, so you've read the 2 sentences, and even though the second one, it still had the same meaning and the students could understand it easier, it didn't sound as nice. It wasn't as pretty to hear. So that's why we need to teach vocabulary in our classroom so that our students can understand the things that they're reading and that they can read things that are more are simply more fun to read. So today we're going to look at the reasons we should study vocabulary, the mindset we need to have while teaching vocabulary, some of the technology resources we can use, one of the key methods we can use to teach vocabulary, and then we're going to practice together. So why should we study vocabulary in the first place? Well, in this book, the book we're reading for class, they say students cannot comprehend what they are going to read unless they know most of the words that they see there. And they also say that having an understanding of the vocabulary they're going to read contributes to comprehension. And then Wright says that knowing and expanding your vocabulary is essential to literary and school success. So without having that background knowledge of what those words mean, the things we read are not going to make as much sense. And then Fisher and Frey say that without the meaning of these words, words and phrases are nothing more than a nonsensical string of sounds or letters. So what are the mindsets we need to have while teaching vocabulary? Just to put it simply, providing definitions does not build strong word knowledge to improve comprehension, but effective vocabulary teaching goes beyond the verbal definitions and context use. So we typically think that to teach vocabulary, we have to teach students to look at the context, but there's so much more. Spies says that we have to show students to look at the word within its context and how it can relate to synonyms and antonyms, and to see the classification with other words. And this sounds like a whole lot of work for us as teachers, but we have to remember that we aren't just teaching words, we are teaching students. So here are some resources to use with technology. The first one is lexipedia.com. Here we go. I'm not showing that. Well, okay, I'll just tell you about it. So lexipedia.com is a great resource. I would particularly use it for 4th or 5th grade because you can type in a word and it gives you a giant map of the word. It puts the word in the middle and branches out. If you have computers, you can look it up if you want. It will give the word welcome as a sample word on the website, and it branches out and shows you all the different meanings. It shows you noun definition, verb definition, adjective, synonym, antonym. So for 4th and 5th graders, they can handle all of the visual things that are going on there. But then for younger kids, I would use Word Hippo. It has a big hippo, so they're gonna think that's fun. You would type in your word, choose what you want, just the meaning, just the synonyms, just the antonyms, and it gives you just the information you're looking for, and it's much simpler. And then there is Vocabulary Spelling City. That's a website and an app. And for teachers, you can get a free subscription. And you can choose from certain lists, and you can create your own vocabulary list, and there's lots of games to do with those words, so that's something really fun too. Now we're going to talk about what I think is a great way to use vocabulary instruction in every subject and not just in reading. So this is something that you can use in every subject. You can use it in math, and science, and social studies. So keyword prediction is the first step of a 3-step process. This is something you use before you read, and you choose 7 to 12 words from a passage. And then you split the students up into small groups, or do it with the whole class, depending on the class size. And then you would discuss the words, how they might be used in the passage, ask them what they think the definitions might be, and then you come back together and clarify what the clarify what the definitions actually are. And Wright did a study on content vocabulary instruction, and says it's a great thing for teachers to use because you can put it into all subjects throughout the school day. So you can choose your text on a topic of study and look all throughout these texts to find the important words that come up, and you pull those words out and teach those to the students, so when they come across them, they know what they're reading and can comprehend it better. The next step to this process is the 5-step approach. This is something to be used while you're reading. Your first step is C. So those words we talked about for keyword prediction, you pause once you see the word, and you return to the word in the text and discuss the content. Step 2, discuss. You draw on what students know and the discussions you had beforehand. Step 3 is to encourage the students to use the word. For me, I would have them practice using it in the context that you saw within the text. Step 4 is to define these words, and is to come together once again and find a singular definition that matches the context again in which you read it. And then step 5, copy. I would have the students copy the word and use the sentence that they used in step 3. So for example, if the sentence was, today we went on a stimulating field trip. Students are not going to know the word stimulating. It's a big word. It's like the ones we use at the beginning. So you're going to have to teach, and you're going to have them discuss, what does stimulating mean? So what do you think that it might mean within this context? So they see the word stimulating, and then you're going to discuss it. You're going to discuss what they think that it's going to mean based on the context and based on their own lives. Then you're going to tell them to use it and come up with their own sentence, and then you're going to agree on one definition and then copy stimulating perhaps in a journal. And then last is semantic mapping, which is perhaps my favorite part of this whole process. Semantic mapping is something you do after you read, and it is the mapping of the meaning of words. So you can see on this diagram, here in the middle you have the word fair, and then it spreads out all into different directions, and it has all the different things students are going to think of when they hear the word fair. So in this, students can brainstorm words that are related to the reading they've just completed. They can categorize ideas, and this encourages imagery, which is so important. So Huey and Swinehart did extensive research on how this process can help students who are English language learners or who have dyslexia, things like that. Because imagery can be put in place to reinforce the relationships between words, and so students can see the differences and the subtleties of what the words actually mean. And for someone who is dyslexic or is just beginning to learn English, this image-based presentation of information can make sense in a way that words by themselves might not. So here you can see the students have gone from fair, and they have words that are synonyms that mean the same thing. They have equal is fair, equal chance is fair, and equally likely is fair. And then they have other contexts. They have the book fair. When they hear the word fair, they think of carnival. When they hear the word fair, they think of someone who's honest. So you can see things like that throughout the semantic mapping. And then one other thing you can use that uses this practice is to do what's called picture noting, which I love. When I read this, the research that they did. It's where you have students have a journal of their vocabulary, and if they heard the word fair, the thing that came to their mind first is what they would draw the picture of. So they take the mental image in their head, they put it on paper, so that when they hear the word fair, again, they can go back and think, that's the picture that I wrote down, that's what it means. So in this context, if you read the word fair, if they were talking about going to a carnival, the student's going to write or draw a picture of a carnival. But if you read it in the context of he was fair, he played fair, they might draw a board game. So it's going to be different, but it can emphasize the picture-word connection for those students. So now we're going to practice. If I can have you guys get into groups of, Rachel, would you mind coming over here for this real quick? And then I'm going to pair you guys up in pairs of 2. This group of 3 is going to have the word air raid. Okay, we're going to do something with this fun in just a minute. So y'all are going to have the word air raid. If you 2 can take the word heart, and then you 2 can take the word called, I'm going to give you about 15 to 20 seconds. Discuss the ideas that come to your mind first. So this is our keyword prediction put into practice. So go ahead and talk about just that one word, and then we're going to come back together and see what else we come up with. Give about 5 more seconds. All right, let's come back together. All right, our group that had air raid. Before we discuss what you talked about, I wanted to point out, I picked out the word air raid from this passage because if you gave this to a group of 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, which is the reading audience for this book, they're not going to know what that means. Hopefully, Lord willing, they're not going to know what air raid is. And so this is an unknown word where we would really have to define the definition. So what did you guys talk about?
We talked about like a bombing, right, and like people like hiding in shelters and like the sirens.
Right, good. Okay, so next is the word heart. So students know this word. They've heard this word for a long time. With Valentine's Day, they have seen this in all kinds of contexts. So this is a known word, but it probably has a new meaning for these students in the context we're going to read it. But what did you guys talk about?
Instead of like just having life, like giving life.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. All right. So called is another known word for these students, and this is one that they might know the meaning, they might not. You're just gonna we would just have to wait and see, what did you guys talk about?
We said that there's like a couple of different meanings. It could be like, I called someone on the phone, or like I'm called to ministry, or like called to a profession, or like we call on a student in class.
Right, very good. All right, so next we have our 5-step process. Now, we're going to read the first paragraph of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. In this paragraph, which is one of my all-time favorite books, in this paragraph we have our 3 words, air raids, heart, and call. Now there are lots of words in this paragraph, but these are 3 that I thought were really good examples of what this might mean. Is there anyone that might want to read this for us today?
Once there were 4 children whose names were Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy. This story is about something that happened to them when they were sent away from London during the war because of the air raids. They were sent to the house of an old professor who lived in the heart of the country, 10 miles from the nearest railway station and 2 miles from the nearest post office. He had no wife. He lived in a very large house with a housekeeper called Miss Macready and 3 servants.
Very good, thank you. All right, so we see the word air raid. So our first step is C, and we would discuss it. So in our discussion with our keyword prediction, we said that it was a bombing. So does that fit the context of this paragraph? Yeah, it does. So then we would proceed to use it in a sentence, and we would define it and copy it in our journals, which we're not going to do today for the sake of time. Then we see the word heart. It says they were sent to the house of an old professor who lived in the heart of the country. So we talked about heart as in our discussion as giving life, but does that match the context of the sentence? No, it doesn't. So this is where the discussion after reading is really, really important to emphasize the context. So we're going to see he lived in the heart of the country. So how is that different than what we talked about before?
Middle.
It's like the middle, exactly. So like the heart of this campus might be Vines, it might be DeMoss. So that's kind of the comparison we could draw there. And then he lived with a housekeeper called Mrs. McCready and 3 servants. So call, does that match our definition? Not really, but kind of, sort of, because you say you might call your mom. So how does this compare to what we talked about earlier?
Well, we were talking about like calling instead of like just labeling, yeah.
Right. This just gives her name.
Yeah.
This is what you call her. You call her Mrs. McCready, that's her name, right. So then you would use it in a sentence, you define, and then copy, put it in their journals. So that's kind of your 5-step process there. And then you have your semantic mapping. Now for air raid, there's really only one solid meaning of air raid. So I would not require them to do a semantic map for air raid. So you would give them, I would just give them the circle in the middle, and then let them do as many meanings as they want. So they might do Valentine's Day as one option. They might put love, but you want to just to encourage your students to stretch and think outside the box. Think in the context of the paragraph we read, like what does that mean for heart, and how is that going to fit into your semantic mapping? And then there's called, and we had lots of definitions for called. Call or called, they can use past or present, doesn't matter. And so then they're going to put the meanings there too. So that's our semantic mapping put into practice. So quickly, just a quick recap. We study vocabulary to expand We study vocabulary to expand our comprehension. We teach vocabulary to help our students succeed, not just for them to know words. And we teach through keyword prediction, the 5-step method, and semantic mapping. These are just 3 methods we can use. There are so many other ways to teach vocabulary, but this was one way that I wanted to focus on today. Last are the references that I used, the research that went into this presentation, and of course our C.S. Lewis. If you can pull out your computers or phones, we're going to do a quick Kahoot. Pin is 201329. spell like it. Is that everybody? Yeah, okay. Let's go ahead and start here. Thanks. All right, why should we teach vocabulary? So that our students know a lot of words, so that our students can comprehend what they're reading, so that students know how to spell words. Good job, everybody. What are 3 ways to teach vocabulary? Spelling, reading, and semantic maps. Semantic maps, keyword prediction, and flashcards. Keyword prediction, the 5-step approach, and semantic maps. Good job. What is keyword prediction? Having the students pick words to study, you as the teacher choosing words for studying from a text, or letting the students pick words to study from a text. This one's a little trickier. Good job! All right, what is the first step to the 5-step approach?
We all had our breath for that one.
Discuss, use, define, or see. Oh no! Our discussion goes with keyword prediction, and then you do see and then discuss. Why is semantic mapping important? Because it increases comprehension through imagery, because students like to draw pictures, or because students can do it on their own. Oh, good job. All right, last 2. Was your knowledge of vocabulary and methods of teaching vocabulary stretched today? Oh, I'm glad. Did you enjoy this presentation?
Oh.
They were both right, don't worry. All right, thank you very much.